Tea time. You know, this series I made of tea times, it was never planned to be a big thing, really. It's just that Rafi got stuck with editing one day. Rendering was a bit slow and it was a bit difficult to edit things at the time. We basically needed, and the editing system, something went wrong with it if I remember correctly. We needed something to fill in the time, something to just get a stopgap, as it were, to just sort of, give some time for us to sort out editing, find out time to edit and record and all that, and sort out video programs. And yet here we are. Welcome everybody, Souldin of the Grin Brothers here, and welcome to the 100th tea time. Yeah, for a series of videos that was basically designed as filler, literal filler, like they weren't supposed to really be break before more Grin Brothers content to give us time to edit and render Grin Brothers videos of our playthroughs, and yet ended up doing so many of these discussions whilst drinking tea that, hey, we're at the 100th tea time. For this 100th tea time, I think I've had this tea before during recording. It might have been a while back, but you know what? I like this tea, and it's it's a special tea time, so I figured I'd have it again whilst talking about this subject, and that is my personally made banana offie tea. It was a recipe suggested to me by T2, and I used a couple of T2 teas to make it. I used the T2 banana baked tea leaves along with the T2 terrific toffee tea leaves. Now, how I do it to ensure that it's a bit stronger, because it came out a bit weak the first time I tried it, when I just put 1 teaspoon of banana bake and 1 teaspoon of terrific toffee. That kind of weak. So what I do is I put a spoonful of terrific toffee or banana bake, either order, and then put the opposite one in, and then put another of the first one, and then put the fourth one. So it's basically so the tea leaves are layered on one another. They mix a bit better that way. And then I brew it for 3 minutes, and that's my terrific. It's part terrific. And that's my banana offie tea, and I'll be having that as I talk about a subject I wasn't initially planning on talking about. Like, when thinking of what I should do for my 100th tea time, I thought, well, you know what? I should talk about my first video game system. And so I got out the first video game console I ever owned, and this is going to be a wonderful discussing about. Then I realised that wasn't my first video game system. And by first video game system, I'm not meaning the one I've played. The first video game system I played was the Amiga 1200 or 1200, depending how you want to call it. I remember it was Bubble and Squeak, my first game. But no, what I'm talking about in terms of first video game system, I mean the first video game that was my own. The first video game system I owned. Now, I was thinking of in consoles as first, and so I came up with a discussion to talk about the console. But then I realised, no. My first video game system was a little handheld. I remember the day obtaining it, and I remember a special game delivered in a package for me to play on it. And, I actually have it here. I'm missing the back of this little handheld. It's in a purple colour, yeah. Purple was the colour of it. And it spells colour on it wrong, because it spells it like an American does. So, it's, let me actually see. Yeah, so. And of course, it doesn't say what it is when you just turn it on. But of course, a handheld system with the words colour in on it and spelled incorrectly, well, there's only one thing it can be. My very first video game system, my first video game handheld, was the Game Boy Color. And I must have been about, let's see, I was 6 at the time I got Pokemon. So I must have been about 5 or 6 when I got this little system, because I remember playing Pokemon Red on this Game Boy Color. And I do remember playing Game Boy games before I had this Game Boy, because we had a big blocky Game Boy. Rarely played very many games on it, and we lost it at some point, not sure where that went. But I remember my first Game Boy game was actually Super Mario Land 2. I absolutely love that game, and I actually own 2 copies of it, because of reasons I'll explain later. But yeah, Super Mario Land 2 was my first Game Boy game, and then, let's see, a few others. There was Kirby's Dream Land that I remember was one of my firsts. There was also Yoshi's Cookies, I believe. Let me see. Actually, we found a bunch of old Game Boy games a while back up in Kiris's loft. Yeah, Mario and Yoshi. That was one of the first. And there's another one. Another game I remember playing quite a bit on the original Game Boy before I got my own Game Boy. That was Wario Blast featuring Bomberman. Yeah, that was a thing. A Wario and Bomberman crossover. That was one of the first sort of Game Boy games I played. And those sort of games I ended up playing a lot on the sort of classic Game Boy. But then, when Pokemon came out, it's like, oh gosh, I need my own Game Boy. And so I ended up getting, which was at the time, Game Boy Color. Yeah. I was about 6 at the time. Must be, I think, the Game Boy Color only came out in 2000. And then I got Pokemon Red with it. And it's interesting. I'm not a fan of the colour purple yet. It's always been what my Game Boy Color was. As I said, I lost the back a long time ago, but I've had a lot of memories with this little system. As I said, my sort of big Game Boy memory was waiting for getting the delivery of Pokemon Red. Not sure where that is. Okay, wait, I have a pretty good idea where it is. I'll get that out in a sec. And I remember, oh gosh, I got a really special version because it had like the Peggy rating symbol on it. It's like, my brothers, Kiris and Silverwing, didn't have any rating symbol on their Game Boy, on their copies of Pokemon Red or Blue. So I thought I had a special one because mine had a symbol. I was like, that must have been added because it was delivered in a package. I was 6, you know. And oh gosh, I like most of my big Game Boy memories will admittedly be Pokemon games. Like I remember playing through Pokemon Red, had an Ivysaur in it, Pidgey, which I insisted on having Razor Wind on it, even though Razor Wind is a terrible move. Beedrill, my Beedrill rocked. Vaporeon, Dugtrio, yeah, I had a pretty cool team actually. And of course Raichu, I was a fan of Pikachu back then, and then Raichu was just, it's Pikachu, but it's cooler because it's orange. Yeah, a lot of the games I like were sort of Pokemon related. Of course, I'm a big fan of Pokemon Red. I'll get that out in a bit. I owned all the Gen 2 ones, although I didn't have much fun with them. Partly because I don't think the Gen 2 games are that good, but also because with Pokemon Blue, Red, Blue, Yellow, I was playing them with my brothers. When Pokemon, for some reason, my brothers all went to that period of time where they weren't interested in Pokemon. Which I never entered that period of time somehow. But Pokemon Silver, Gold, Crystal, they never played any of those until the remakes came about. None of my brothers had actually played any of Gold, Silver, Crystal, or those sort of Gen 2 entries. I was the only one, so I guess that's why I wasn't as big of a fan of it. But yeah, you know, there's a lot of other sort of Pokemon-related games. I remember playing... I got Red, Blue, and Yellow. My blue version, I remember, ended up getting stuck in the washing machine, and so the front of it's destroyed. And yet the thing still works. Let me just see here. Still works fine and dandy. It went through a washing machine. It's lasted several years. You'll hear the little jingle of it. Yeah. Da 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 da. Hope I don't get copyrighted for that. Yeah, I named myself Slip for some reason. Yeah, got a little Pikachu here, Pudgy Pikachu, all that, Jigglypuff. Pekka. Was that Spearow? Yeah, Spearow. Not sure why it hasn't evolved, but hey, that was what I was like as a kid. It's not that I didn't want to evolve my Pokemon, it's just I didn't like evolving them until certain points. I remember one of the worst memories regarding my Game Boy, though, my Game Boy Color, was losing my data on Pokemon Red. I'm not sure what happened, but I just lost all my data on Pokemon Red. My whole team. That was tragic. I've never completed the original Pokemon Red. As a result, maybe I should at some point. Because you know, it's like I couldn't go on. I lost all the team. As I said, I'm a big fan of Kirby's Dream Land. Obviously, fell in love with Kirby. At that point, well, more so with Kirby's Fun Pack later on. But I was a huge fan of Kirby even before then. And of course, Super Mario Land 2 was where I got started with the Game Boy. And another big thing I remember is when Pokemon Yellow came out, the video game store, I think Electronics Boutique, was giving out these special bags. Little bags to your Game Boy, and it had Pokemon Yellow with it. There's a little pocket here, which I've written my name. Got Liam in really faded multicolours here. And it, you know, have Pokemon Yellow inside it. And, you know, it stores up to 4 Game Boy games and a Game Boy Color really nicely. And let's see, I'm pretty sure I know Pokemon Red's in here. I've stored 4 pretty precious games here. I'm not sure what Crystal was doing in here. Okay, out of you. You're not that precious. I
I found a precious game of mine a while back, which I'm going to be putting in here. Let's see, you've got Pokemon Red, yeah, with the E for Peggy. Now it can't. Now it would be like almost M, because apparently gambling means that Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow is like 16 rated in the UK. Here's Kirby's Dream Land, of course, tucked away in here. And another one. I remember getting this one for my birthday. Pocket Bomberman. Strange 2D Bomberman game. I remember having more fun with the minigames, if anything, but it's Bomberman. I actually really like Bomberman. Like, I'm a really big fan of Bomberman. It's, hence why the big thing that excited me about the Nintendo Switch was, oh my gosh, Super Bomberman R! Bomberman's back! Sort of thing. And it's also why Warrior Blast, featuring Bomberman, one of my favourite little Game Boy games to play. There's actually a lot of Game Boy games that I never actually did, there's a lot I've heard about, but I never did play. Like, for instance, my favourite genres are fighting games and RPGs, but there isn't exactly a huge plethora of those on the Game Boy. But there's some, but I never really got to them. Let's just look for some of these games I've got here. As mentioned, when going through the loft, we found a few old games that we hadn't found, that we hadn't seen in a while. So I got a few great little classics I remember. Pinball Dreams. It's actually in a really amazing Amiga game. I don't think we actually own the Amiga version, but Pinball Dreams, I strangely like pinball. I don't really play many pinball games. I don't own many pinball games mainly, but I really like pinball video games. Pinball Dreams. I love Pinball Dreams. And Kirby Pinball Land. I didn't play that on the original Game Boy. I've played that on the 3DS Virtual Console, along with the likes of Trip World and Kirby's Dream Land 2. Kirby's Dream Land 2 is amazing. It's amazing how much they can pack into it. Except finding those rainbow things is a pain in the ass. But yeah, like Pinball Dreams and Kirby Dream. I remember going on holiday. I think we went to Wales, and when it was like pouring down with rain, or we just weren't going out at the time, Pinball Dreams is what kept me entertained. I just played this for hours and hours. But that's just one of many games. Another game that fell into the washing machine was this Rugrats game I've got here. Gotta say, Rugrats games on the handhelds are awful. Yeah, unlike the PlayStation, the GameCube Rugrats game with the Search for Reptar and Rugrats Royal Ransom, I believe it was. Those are good Rugrats games. The handheld ones are actually kind of terrible, I'm afraid. So sorry, the Paris one, you're pretty bad. Pokemon Silver was my choice over Gold. I didn't prefer it at the time, but hey, now I've actually become really fond of Ladybird, so yeah, Pokemon Silver rocks. Pokemon Puzzle Challenge. Pretty nice game. Blew really hard, as always. I'm not very good at puzzle games. However, I did find out about, through the penalty pond for Smash, that board, that there was a extra little mode in this game. Actually, wait, I remember discovering it before that, actually, but never remembering how I accessed it. I accessed it by free accident. But this Pokemon Puzzle Challenge game was originally going to be a penalty pond game, aka Puzzle League, starring Lip and the Fairies of Flowers and all that. And you can actually access the beta of it in the Pokemon Puzzle Challenge. That's my favourite part of playing Pokemon Puzzle Challenge. I've got Pokemon Gold. I've got legendaries on that, so I never got rid of them. They've probably lost now due to the data system. Game Watch Gallery, never played that actually. For some reason, it's just been in my drawer. 2 copies of Super Mario Land 2 for reasons, which I guess I'll say, I won a tournament. I won a Super Smash Bros. Brawl tournament with Ganondorf. And the prize was, because I actually owned more than one Game Boy, a Game Boy Pocket. This little thing with its own lighter bar thing. I think it was the last thing Gunpei Yokoi made. Only uses 2 batteries. No colour, but it's a nifty thing. Really small, but yet feels really nice. Yeah, I won this. Super Mario Land, I think Tetris, because we needed another copy of Tetris in the house. And Wave Race. Never really got into Wave Race so far, but I've tried it a few times, and it's pretty cool to simply own that. Pokemon Yellow, of course, I got that with the pack, the sort of bag thing, and that's really cool. A game that I took forever to get. Something I may be bringing up on screen. I'm not sure if I mentioned already. I'll probably throw up a few games up on screen, the words of them, of games I would like to see about owning for the Game Boy. Game Boy Color, that'd be pretty cool. If I stumble across them on a market stall, maybe pop into CX or something. There's another game that I was a really big fan of. Like, if I had a top 6 Game Boy games list, it would be in my top 6. But I haven't found the cartridge of it, but it's an old one. I couldn't remember the name of it for a while, but it's called Maru's Mission. It's based off this little ninja anime thing, or like inspired by it. And it's just this really fun action platformer game. sort of shooting sort of shurikens and this strange demonic head kidnaps your girlfriend. Yeah, that was a strange thing to Google. Oh, what is the game where you're a ninja where the strange giant demonic head wizard kidnaps your girlfriend, who's like 5 times your size, but you know. But a game I took ages to find, but was so glad I did because I love it to bits. Pokemon trading card game. Again, like I said, I was super into Pokemon. I'm still really into Pokemon, but like a lot of the Game Boy games I remember are the Pokemon ones. Like I had a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun in recent years with this game because I didn't own it for a long time. It was only like oh wait, no, it's actually been a while now because it was back in the end of sixth form I finally found that. So that was like 7 years ago. Oh gosh, that's making me feel old. But yeah, found a bunch of other games in Curious's Loft. We got soccer here. I think that's a Konami one. I remember a few times playing this. Silverwing played this more often because if anything there was football, he played. And for some reason, this game calls itself soccer, despite being in the UK. They never. That's the thing with PAL games. They're never in PAL territory. We were usually given the second-hand pickings. We never really got anything translated for us. I think it's supposed to be a Konami-made one, actually, although it says Nintendo, so it might be a Nintendo one. Let me actually just see. Got the Nintendo seal of quality. Let's see here. Soccer then. Nope. Got a blow on it. Now turn down the volume just in case. Let's see, who's this made by? Oh no, Rage Software and Elite Systems. Yeah. So not sure who they are. Well, maybe I'll throw something up. Maybe they made some other iconic games. And before I go on to the others, I've got one pretty iconic one that I remember playing a lot. I'm going to drink some of this banana offie tea. That didn't taste right. That's his point. Something went wrong with it. Did I brew it for too long? Well, there was a problem with the cupboard before. Might have ruined the tea. I'll have to try one more time and see. But basically, there was a problem with the cupboard earlier where the cupboard got damp, and so some of the teas were ruined. And I had to press them out. Could have affected one of them. Glad it doesn't taste of banana or terrific toffee. I'll try each of them individually. Shame that. But it does leave me time to talk more about the Game Boy games. One, I'm not even going to bother trying to get out of the package because, oh gosh, these Game Boy boxes were tight. Donkey Kong. Curious loved this game. I only got so far, but it was a pretty fun one. It's great how they expanded on the original Donkey Kong so much. Another game we don't actually own that Curious also really liked and was a lot of fun was Wario Land. Wario Land, yeah. I owned Wario Land 3. Pretty fun, but Wario Land, the original one, was superb. I think it was actually called Super Mario Bros. 3. Sorry, Super Mario Land 3 Wario Land, and then it became Wario Land 2. Just be confusing. Never a copy of Super Mario Land. We have so many of those. Let's see, got some real random ones over here. As I said, we've got the Yoshi's Cookie. We've got Toy Story on Game Boy, which was, we got the Sega Mega Drive one, so we got the better version anyway, but Tweety's High Flying Adventure, Stuart Little, Crazy Castle 4, yeah, some real random ones, which I've never actually got any memories of those. We've got a Jurassic Park game. But here's one I actually do have some slight memories of it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, Radical Rescue. Actually, it's a surprisingly good game. I played it for again a little bit. And it's pretty decent. Never really got too far in it. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because my favourite turtle is Mikey and you have to start off playing as him, but yeah, I might actually play this a little bit more. Pop in the Game Boy Color, have it a go. But yeah, I've played the Game Boy Color quite a bit. Of course, it was a classic sort of system, and whilst of course I could always put the Game Boy games in the Game Boy Advance, sometimes I like to just get out the old Game Boy Color, like Pokemon trading card game. I've never once played on the GBA. It's always been on the Game Boy Color. Like I was with Pimple Dreams, I just pop it on this old thing. Sure, the back may be missing, but after all these years it's been with me. This thing still works, and it still stays in my bedside cabinet, so I can pick it out ready to play at any point I want to. Sometimes, not too often, maybe a couple times every year, I'll get this game out as on the way to sleep and just play it for a bit.
there's a fondness you get for your first system, and I'm glad it was a good system. The Game Boy Color was a great system, and because of everyone else getting some Game Boy games, there was a good selection. Some which I don't own, and some which belong to others, and all that. But they're all good games here, though. Well, as in there's a wide variety of good games we've got. And that's really cool and all. Kind of curious to hear what not favorite, my favorite system is a completely different one, but I have a lot of fond memories of the Game Boy Color, even though it's not the most amazing piece nowadays. But there are still a lot of solid games on it, and a lot of simple but just enjoyable games to play for a little bit every now and again. So then, here's a question for you all. What was your first video game system? Not the one you first played on, but the first video game system you owned. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. It was really nice going through memory lane with the Game Boy Color, so I'm kind of interested as to, what was your first video game system? Feel free to tell me, and I'd love to discuss about it. And, and I guess, if you have any memories of the good old Game Boy Color, the classic Game Boy Pocket, any Game Boy memories, really, hey, feel free to share those below as well. It'll be interesting again to discuss about it. So then, I hope you all enjoyed this 100th tea time. Wow, it may actually be interrupting some of the E3 tea times I've planned, but 100 tea time. I hope you enjoyed, and cheerio, everyone!